Paxton blinked when his TV screen shut off. Confused, he turned his head only to see his girlfriend Lillian standing next to him with the remote in her hand. "What's going on?" he asked, frowning. "I told you we have to get ready," she said, putting her fist to her hips. "Gina's birthday is in half an hour, and you're not even dressed." Paxton leaned over and grabbed the remote from her hand. He switched the TV back on. "You can go on without me," he said. "She's your friend, and I doubt she'll even miss me." "But we planned on going months ago," she said, her voice rising. "You can still go," he said, refocusing his eyes on the TV screen. "No one's stopping you." "I don't know what happened to you, Paxton," she said with frustration. She grabbed the car keys on the counter. "Ever since your father died, you've changed. You need therapy." "I'm fine," he said dismissively. Lillian made an angry sound in her throat, turned on her heels, and left the room. A few minutes later, he heard the door slam behind her. But her parting words disturbed him more than he let on. He was no longer able to concentrate on his video game, and he switched off the TV. He reflected that for the past while, his grades had slipped drastically. He attributed his bad grades to a lack of motivation and maybe laziness on his part, but he wondered if there was something more. Paxton contemplated the question over the next few days. His girlfriend's anger and unhappiness increased. Her discontent should have bothered him, yet he felt numb to it. A few years ago, and before his father died, he had fallen head over heels in love with Lillian. She never strayed far from his thoughts, and he was ecstatic when they moved in together. But lately he felt nothing for her or anything else for that matter. He shook his head. Did his father's death really change him? Truthfully, he felt like an NPC, a non-playable character in his own life. He was going through the motions, and he neither felt sad nor happy. He was just stuck in the middle, unable to move forward. But before he was able to explore the idea, Lillian arrived home from class. She took one look at him sprawled on the couch, and her eyes darted from the clothes strewn in the living room floor and to the dirty dishes still in the sink. Suddenly her face distorted with anger. She released a string of curses and hammered him with all his faults and past deeds. Paxton stood up. "I don't want to hear this," he said. Ignoring her crying and yelling, he walked out of their apartment. He stepped out in the cool air and barely noticed the late hour. He was deep in his thoughts, and he continued walking even though he had no destination in mind. A couple of hours went by before he noticed the unfamiliar surroundings. As he tried to get his bearings, his confusion turned to fear when he realized that he was in a bad part of town. He started to retrace his steps when a man emerged and blocked his path. The thug thrust out his hand, revealing a sharp blade. "Give me your money," he said, his tone menacing. "I don't have any money," Paxton said, trying to keep his voice steady. And it was the truth. He had left the apartment without his wallet or his phone. "You're lying," the thug growled. He frisked Paxton's pocket and made a sound of disgust when he wasn't able to find anything. Then before he knew what was happening, the man lashed out, dropping his fist and allowing the hilt of the blade to connect with Paxton's skull. Paxton collapsed on the ground, and darkness descended upon him. He didn't know how long he was unconscious, but when he opened his eyes, he felt a sharp pain in his brain. He cradled his head and moaned. He was hurt, alone, and in an unfamiliar place. He started to sit up when a sudden movement caught the corner of his eye, and he saw a man walking toward him. His heart started to race. The last thing he needed was to get attacked a second time. But then Paxton caught sight of the stranger's face. "Dad?" he asked. "What? How?" His father was killed by a drunk driver a year ago, yet somehow he was standing in front of him. Paxton watched as his father placed a hand over his heart and sent him a familiar smile. Paxton hadn't felt any emotions for a long time, yet his heart filled with warmth and love. But then the feelings triggered sorrow deep within him. "Why did you have to die?" he asked, his voice filling with anguish. But his father continued to look at him, his expression gentle and loving. Paxton felt enveloped by a sense of comfort and safety. But then a few minutes later, his father's image began to waver and fade. "No!" Paxton yelled in alarm. But no amount of shouting could stop his father from disappearing once again. His thoughts took a dark turn. His throat began to constrict. He missed his dad. He missed hearing his voice, hearing the comforting and sensible advice that always guided him in the right direction. But his father was no longer here. That cold truth tore at Paxton's heart, and he began to bawl. A long time passed, and he was exhausted and no longer able to shed any more tears. But then he remembered the image of his father and realized that he had appeared for a reason. But why? All of a sudden, the reason became glaringly obvious. Even though his father wasn't physically present, he resided in Paxton's heart. This was the truth, and the warmth in his body returned, confirming what he'd known all along. His father would always be a part of him. Paxton pushed himself up from the ground and made his way home. He sat down with Lillian and had a long talk with her, opening up about his vulnerabilities and struggles. He agreed to do therapy and made serious efforts to improve himself. And as he began to heal, his heart opened further and he was able to feel once again. What did you guys think of the story? Please comment in the comment section below. I can't wait to read your answers and discussions. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to like and subscribe to get the latest stories to warm your heart. Until next time, bye.